So I'm not sure if Pindar told everyone in the room, but we are on break until 6:15. 6:15, we're going to reconvene in this room. So you can do whatever you want for 20 minutes. Just a reminder to everybody that we are on break until 6:15 p.m. Then we will reconvene here. So go do as whatever you'd like until 6:15. Thank you everyone for arriving on time. We're going to get started momentarily. Yep. Are we going to get the bell? Oh. It's 6:15. Are we going to bell? Come on in, take a seat. We are going to start by going over the roundtable discussions. And so I'm going to call people up and you'll just give a summary of what you guys talked about, if there are any conclusions. Keep it to about like 5 minutes each. All right, so we're going to start with block propagation. It was in the training theater. All right.
Yeah, so we did a summary of some of the IBLT and weak block results. We also had Jay Tuman do a really good quick ideas on how to do more distributed block propagation and some of the mechanical issues with block propagation rather than necessarily the protocol stuff. So it was really an extension of the talk that we gave. We went into some more of the future work that we were talking. But yeah, it was a reasonably productive and friendly session.
Great. Any questions about that? We're doing questions? Nope. All right. Okay. On to the next one. Lessons from Linux. Oh, I don't think Warren's here. Does anybody want to present on Warren's behalf from the session about Linux? Thank you.
Warren basically covered his involvement in Fedora and the model that he saw evolve from early Linux days and how Linux eventually supplanted Unix. What else to say? He kind of gave his current impression as to the maturity of Bitcoin, what we need to work on. Yeah, he was generally optimistic, and I think if you're interested in the growth of Bitcoin, talk to him further.
Thank you. That looks like it was it for the training theater. Training room 1, we have meta protocols.
Hello. Well, we talked about the basic meta protocols, color coins, counterparty, all of these various things that we're placing onto the Bitcoin protocol that are not actually coins. Also talked about Factom, my own project a little bit, at least to the extent of how we're collecting data and creating Merkle roots and placing the Merkle roots into the Bitcoin blockchain. Color coins probably dominated the discussion because we were talking about what it means to try to manage real world assets with a blockchain, and the nature of trust and the nature of liability. I believe that we determined or came to the agreement that the main reason that you might want to use the blockchain to manage these assets is to limit your liability, because if you are keeping the ledger, you're going down the road of e-gold, and the government has a tendency to take you and throw you in prison if you manage ledgers. But if it's a distributed autonomous ledger, then magically that liability is distributed across a bunch of parties and you're not liable. And that's pretty much it. We had some very interesting conversation, but I can't quite remember all the points. If anybody remembers them, you can shout them out. Anybody? I don't even see many. Oh, oh, right.
Oh, okay, it's working. I think, and please anyone stop me if I don't remember correctly, but I think generally it's the idea of all sort of colored coin or assets over Bitcoin is limited to, it can't be trustless because you always have to trust the issuer. And therefore, and not only that, you need to be cognizant of the value you're putting into these tokens, because if the value that it represents is much more than the cost it is to attack Bitcoin or whatever other sort of a blockchain that you would put or overlay layer on top of Bitcoin, then it doesn't make sense to put that asset onto it, because people would just, the cost to attack it would compensate them for stealing your, I don't know, gold bars or whatever like you put on it. And I think the last thing was that the only thing that that you would want to use Bitcoin for in terms of assets representation in the token is that its immutability, because blockchain does give you immutability, which means irrefutable history of previous transactions. And therefore, if that's the only kind of thing that that you can buy from Bitcoin, then there are different ways of doing it where you don't need to embed a lot of data into the Bitcoin, maybe just some sort of anchoring, just some sort of a pegged, or not really pegged, just some sort of like a notarization of your own maybe chain onto Bitcoin. And then you can run your own sort of rule set on that chain, whether it be a side chain or whatever you want to call it, color coin, overlay protocol chain, or like a Factom chain.
Factom. We did talk about the fact that in the Honduras negotiations that we've been involved in, the thing that they really wanted was not to track land on the blockchain, but actually track the authentication of the surveys, authentication of the land titles, and then actually export the whole process offshore to be reviewed by someone that wasn't actually in Honduras, because that was considered a way of getting confidence in the process. So it is very interesting in my mind that most of the applications of the blockchain probably will not involve a coin ultimately. It's just a question of can we get there. So there you go.
I have a question, can I?
Yeah.
Have you been considering using pay-to-contract hash tool? You know, instead of embedding the hash inside the blockchain, you generate
The script.
well, basically, yeah, you can basically generate a commitment that reveals that at that point in time it had to exist.
Right, right. Well, what are you talking about? Factom? Or are you talking about color coins? Or are you
In
talking
general.
In general?
Instead of storing metadata in the blockchain.
It's really clever for lots of solutions. The pay to script hash is a really clever solution to, the pay to the
Contract hash, yeah.
is it's a really clever solution to basically buy something and agree on an address at the same time. There was an excellent speech in the 2013 Bitcoin conference in San Jose about this. I highly recommend it, but it doesn't quite solve the problem that we're trying to solve, and it would only save a small amount of overhead and introduce other attack
Issues.
vectors.
Right. There you go. That's why.
Thank you.
That's why we keep him around. This encyclopedic memory for all this stuff. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have DAGs and braids.
We only talked about this for about 5 minutes because it bled over into the color coding conversation, but answered some questions anyway. One thing I will say is that there will be a paper on this, some simulations of the things I showed, a few weeks to a month still working on it. It will be submitted to the Ledger Journal and will be in the archive. Anybody else working in this field, working in these kind of things, these simulations, please also submit it to a journal, get it peer reviewed. This community needs peer review by each other. I hope the Ledger sends our papers to each other, and we will all vet each other's ideas.
Okay, so what I think it's actually very, very important to point out that Braids solves the Chinese firewall problem, or basically network problems. It was something that came up in conversation. I don't know if it came up in our conversation, but very, very, very interesting aspect of Braids. If you can enumerate
Yeah, I mean, the problem of Bitcoin blocks, 1 megabyte blocks, is sending a 1 megabyte blob around the network and then verifying it all at once is inefficient. It's spiky, and what we really want to do is take that 1 megabyte blob and spread it out over time. There are a number of ways that are to do this. The Bitcoin NG proposal is one of them. Mine is another. Jonathan's proposal that he talked right after me is another one. The way to fix the block size problem is to spread out all those transactions over a longer time period and do it more continuously. There are many ways to do smaller, faster layers. We should beat on all of them until we decide which one's best.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Lightning.
So we started the discussion group by with an explanation of how the Lightning Network works, with first how microtransaction channels work, and then how the Lightning Network will connect these to form a network. Then from the parts that we already designed in that, we moved on to the parts that where we don't know the details yet, like how to do the routing on such a network. And yeah, there we think a lot of things will be very similar to the internet, but a lot of things cannot be applied there. And then we moved on to, let's say, what happens if a node fails somewhere in the network, and how will transactions suddenly fail, and in the worst case we said, well, there will be a timeout on ongoing transactions, and then people will get their money back. Then we asked, the question was, how long does it take until we have the Lightning system available? And the answer basically was, well, a command line version, a version for geeks who like to experiment with it, will be available pretty soon. But really the slick user interface version that can be used by anyone, well, that will take quite a bit of time. And well, we didn't get any dates, for, like how long, in what year will it be finished, but we got a sort of a sequence, like first we have to have all these, yeah, okay. We have to all these bits finished. And then we went on to some issues that could happen if the system is actually deployed, like you might need actually quite a bit of money to be locked up in these payment channels. And another issue that popped up is there could be a bank run in these channels if people suddenly decide that Lightning Network is should no longer, that they don't want to use it anymore, and then that could overload the blockchain if people suddenly simultaneously try to close their channels. And well, we said, well, that failure mode also exists in Bitcoin right now if everybody tries to sell their Bitcoin simultaneously. So we thought, and also if this happens in Lightning, then at least people still have cryptographic keys that gives them access to their Bitcoins. They just have to wait until the bank run is over, and then their channels will still work. So that's I think the conclusion of at least some people was it is pretty cool technology. But yeah, so thanks.
Any questions?
No questions?
Thank you. Okay, next up we have privacy in a blockchain world.
We talked about, well, mainly about Zcash, the Zero Cash coin that I'm working on. And we got lots of really good, challenging questions, notably from Bob, among others, and Loy. Where'd he go? No names, no names. Oh, sorry. And then this other person who was there, that was close, that was really close, totally blew my mind by talking about the Lightning Network and saying that, you know, the Lightning Network involves both sides committing some coin that they control in such a way that under certain conditions the other side can claim it. And basically, this could be a little bit inaccurate, but to a certain degree, the two sides don't have to be on the same blockchain as each other, which really blows my mind. So the Lightning Network is kind of almost a decentralized currency exchange between arbitrary blockchains that have the right. Yeah, and yeah, yes, yeah. Let's see. And then we talked about Zuko's triangle, which is this conjecture about possible desirable properties of name systems. That was fun. And we scribbled all over a piece of paper. And do you have any questions about privacy?
What is Zuko's triangle?
Okay, so
Zuko.
Zuko's triangle is this conjecture that Aaron Schwartz and Mark Miller came up with years ago and blamed on me, which is that a name system can have three properties that are desirable, and you can't easily get more than two of them. And those properties are vaguely, approximately, security, decentralization, and human meaningfulness in your names. And that, I think that conjecture was kind of disproven by Namecoin, which has all three properties, more or less. But I also think that this kind of proved that nobody cares to have all those properties because no one uses Namecoin because you don't really need all those properties.
Well, or
Shall I stop now?
Or those properties aren't a necessary condition for humans actually using it or something.
Yeah, like the human meaningful names are not really needed for humans to get their work done on the internet.
Question?
Any other questions about privacy or Zero Cash or
How can we get the source code?
Lightning?
How can we get the source code?
You can get the source code for Zero Cash under an open source license by emailing me at zuko@leastauthority.com.
Do you hear that live stream?
Yeah.
Everyone
One question.
who asks nicely can get the source code.
Anything else?
That guy has a question. That guy has a question right
Yeah.
over there.
Okay. So why is it now on a site and we have to mail you?
Yeah, somebody asked this too. Yeah, the real answer is that I am doing a bunch of CEO jobs for the first time. I'm an engineer at heart and I identify as an engineer. But I've got to do these things like talk to journalists about... there's an article coming out in Wired in January. And I kind of thought I shouldn't publicize it in advance of that, like I'm doing right now, because it will like sap the value of the Wired article or something. So that's the answer. I don't know if it's a good one.
So come January, the code will be public.
Yes, yeah, the code will be public soon, but I will give it to you right now if you ask.
Thank you.
Nicely.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Okay, thanks.
Can I grab the mic? Thank you. Okay, next up we have extensibility, fraud proofs, and security models. Anyone from the group want to present on behalf of
Is
the
Eric
organizer?
here? We can leave him to the end if he appears.
Okay.
Okay, trust, stability, and community decision making.
So we started. Where am I going? Where am I going?
There we go.
You need to put a little masking tape X on the floor. So we talked about the kinds of pressures that Bitcoin is going to face that will lead to some utility in process and decision making and giving voice to stakeholders, if not necessarily formal control or power, and expanding that pool of stakeholders and that definition of stakeholders, and why Bitcoin might very well find itself in a place where that is both desirable and necessary. And that conversation rolled into, you know, how does a community like this go ahead and do that? You know, where do you look for examples of people who have done it well, of communities that have done it well? How do you transition towards that? How do you convince existing stakeholders? The point was brought up that this is a community of people where there isn't a lot of trust and where centralized structures are disfavored, even if they're just places where people are talking about things, and how that might be unique to Bitcoin, but probably actually isn't. It's just a human problem that gets solved over time. So how do you build trust? And we sort of reached a point where people think this is stuff we should work on and talk about, but nobody could really say who should be working on it and where it should be talked about and how you could ever say anything about it without getting lynched. So that was a fun discussion. And it kind of convinced me that I don't want to be lynched. But I might be willing to try to have those conversations until somebody threatens to lynch me and then I disappear. So we'll see how that goes. If you guys have questions about that, I'm happy to talk now, but we can also take those conversations offline. I have a box full of examples and stuff that I think might be applicable.
Thank you. Any questions? Welcome, everyone. You can come on in, take a seat.
Thank you. Please come on in.
Is Eric Lombroso here back? Eric? No. Okay.
All right, next we have one-time zero-sum ring signatures.
Connor, it's
Connor.
yours. Come on. Wake up, man. It's not over till it's over.
You guys can come in and sit down.
Yeah, so hi, my name's Connor Fromnick. For those of you who missed the presentation that I gave earlier, it was just a recap of an experiment that I was doing in partner with Jinglan. And the goal was just sort of like experiment with fungibility and built on Monero style ring signatures and incorporated confidential transactions. And we built a prototype that is on GitHub currently. So thank you.
Any questions from the audience? All right.
Yeah, summary.
Just a quick summary.
Okay. Yeah, so basically...
No, over here.
Okay.
Sorry. There are rules.
Okay, let me put this down though.
Yeah. Take it easy. Sorry, we're a little over schedule. You too.
Yeah, so basically, like, Bitcoin is really hard to change. And so I was just like, I guess, trying to see how we can move ahead with this and find ways that we can actually extend the protocol and add new features to it without breaking everything. So, yeah.
Good. Any questions? That sounds good.
Okay, so how?
Well, one of the things I really think we need to do is to structure it like in a layered system, which you worked so well with other kinds of systems. I think Bitcoin right now is kind of very monolithic, and everything is kind of, it was originally built at like one layer, and anything that touches anything else, like, everyone freaks out because it might break everything. So, separating out the consensus layer and making sure that, we can extend the system in ways where, we have more flexibility at the higher levels, so we can actually innovate with stuff without having to step on everyone's toes.
Any other questions?
Any questions? If not, almost there. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Move
Okay,
on
next
along.
we have provisions, privacy, preserving proof of solvency.
Yeah, so I gave a talk about the provisions protocol. Where to? Okay. Anyway, so it's a protocol we developed which allows exchanges or anyone to prove that they're solvent, and the cool thing is that it uses these tools, these zero knowledge proofs that have been talked about yesterday, and in such a way that you do not have to reveal any information. So you don't have to reveal as an exchange which are your Bitcoin addresses, how much do you have in total, what are the values of the users. So, but in the end, you can still be sure that the exchange is solvent, but you do not know anything else.
Great. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Bitcoin in emerging economies. Who presented?
Chelsea, is she here?
Ola or Chelsea?
Ola? Yeah? Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Yep. Yes.
Please.
Just a
come
quick
on
summary.
up. Smile. Scaling Bitcoin. I'm going to sing until you get up here to imitate Montreal. Not very well. I'll bang the thing if you really want to.
It was mostly your points. So. So yeah, we had a room full of people interested in Bitcoin emerging economies, and kind of discussed strategies and ways how Bitcoin adoption would actually scale in emerging economies, whether like bottoms up or top down. And we compared it to the early days of the internet in emerging economies, and Pinder had really good points on terms of aligning interests, different parties, in terms of how a new technology can be adopted and scaled in emerging economies. And it's all about aligning interests, basically, of different parties and companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty well done. Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, next is the mining roundtable. Who wants
Who's
to
gonna be
present?
brave? Marshall.
Marshall?
Wake
Come
up,
on
wake
up.
Scaling Marshall. No. Scaling Marshall. Oh, here we go.
So it was pretty productive, I would say. We didn't really make any concrete decisions, but one thing that was very, I think, important for BIP proposals going forward, the miners gave the core developers some basis points on what we think would be acceptable targets for like orphan rate and how long it takes us to get stuff submitted to the network. So that you guys could kind of reverse engineer a really awesome BIP that we're just like, yep, okay, boom, done. Gave some great tips on how to communicate going forward. Talked about a lot of stuff. It was a really long session.
What were the communication tips?
Get WeChat. I know it's been said a million times and joked about, but truthfully, you could literally get on this WeChat group, send a question any time of the day or night, and you would get an answer. So I don't know of any. If I call Peter Todd, he's probably not going to pick up because he's mad at whatever or something. But no, truthfully, WeChat is a great way to communicate to people in the mining space. Not even just China anymore.
Can anyone join?
Oh yeah, sure. We have a group that's already, I think, 180 people. So that was a big thing, communication techniques.
We're gonna have some questions.
We talked about a few other things, but yeah.
Okay, question over here.
This is actually a comment. This Chinese guy contacted me yesterday and asked me to get WeChat, and I said, well, I can get WeChat, but I can't speak Chinese. And he said, but it has built-in translation.
Yeah,
Did
so-
you know that? So I installed WeChat.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it was like you just push on it and it translates
Yep.
into your language.
It's incredible.
So I've like leveled up in cyborg.
There you go.
Capability.
Another question?
Was there any discussion perhaps of a moderated and translated mailing list by chance?
So email in China is, truthfully, sometimes your inbox will eat an email from mainland. So WeChat generally really, really, really is better, although I know a lot of people hate using cell phones to type messages. Sorry.
But the point is that someone is developing a mailing list where there will
Truthfully,
be translation for short
so
things.
Mailing lists may be better for a very large audience, but if you're wanting quick, snappy responses, it will not be in email.
And theoretically, the mailing list could be linked to in WeChat.
Sure.
If there's some, if there's some
Sure.
major important post, that it could be just linked
Sure.
to WeChat.
Were there any plans to meet again in the future?
We actually talked about it. I know a few of us are getting together tomorrow, but this was a great opportunity for everybody to kind of get to know each other and just generally figure out what people are thinking.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Marshall.
Okay, so just as program chair, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to can we just get a round of applause for all of our speakers and everyone who ran a discussion group and who participated. So I know that preparing a talk for this kind of thing is not easy, and these are really hard concepts, and it's just so valuable to get this stuff out to the community. And a big thanks to our AV team who made this live stream work and get it out to everyone. And to our translators, obviously, who made this a bilingual event that actually sort of worked. Yeah, so And the volunteers, I'm sorry. And to the volunteers. Okay, sorry. And to Pindar.
We actually have a token of appreciation. Matt, if you want to come up and give this to Pindar.
Sure. On behalf of the Planning Committee, the sponsors, the participants, want to shine a light of appreciation on Pindar, who I think is the heart and soul of scaling Bitcoin. So we have a physical Kialara Bitcoin to give to Pindar as a small token of appreciation. All 21 million.
And thank you for, thanks, and thank you for the two sponsors, well, not so, two MCs, obviously, who got us through the day, especially Bobby with the translation. I'm just going to bring up the list of all our sponsors, without which we would not be able to have this conference. Excuse me 1 second. And there's quite a few of them. If I can work. 1 second. And the list is as follows. In platinum, we have Cyberport. One second. Full list here. Cyberport, MIT, DCI, Chaincode Labs, and Blockstream. Thank you very much, platinum sponsors. Put it together. At the silver level, we have PwC, BTCC, Block, Chain, and OKCoin. And in bronze, we have Bitcoin.com, Kraken, ANX, Kaiko, Bitbank, BWCom, Bitfury, Bitmain, KNC, Genesis Mining, Blockchain Lab, Spectron, Cifrex, Netkey, Bitonic, Digital Garage, Zcash, BTC.com, Avalon Miner, HOW BTC, and F2 Pool. Last but not least, our local supporting organizations, the Hong Kong Computer Society, Hong Kong Science, Technology and Parks, Internet Society, and the Digital Asia Hub. Thank you very much, everyone, for that. Last but by no means least are the volunteers who really put this forward, which is basically the planning committee, all the planning as Anton Yemenilov, please, at the back. Phase 1, the heavy shoulders. Nelly, please, who ran all the accounts. Alex Smokos could be here. Neha, obviously our program chair. Warren, where's Warren? Warren Tagami. Warren's there. Whoa, Victoria, the MC. Leo is. There we go. Larry Celebra, who is still working behind the camera and making sure I look good. Samson Mao, and obviously Bobby. Marshall Long, where's Marshall? Okay. Matthew Rozak, you're there. Oh, thank you so much. Adam Ludwin, you couldn't make it. And Sean O'Connor, where's Sean? Okay, well that's it. That's the planning committee. Is Sean with it? There we go.
Also.
And also. And Matt and Elizabeth. Where's Matt? There we go. Yeah, wave. And Elizabeth. And Eric. Right, there's a lot of people. Thank you. I'm going to obviously forget. But there's a serious point, though. And, thank you. Maybe we'll have a sit, because I've got to go. I actually got to do a closing part, which is, thank you. So scaling Bitcoin was very clearly 2 phases. This is the end of phase 2. Right? We did that by design. And so at the very beginning of the process, we had no idea whether or not anyone would come and participate. So many of you who participated in Montreal literally got on a plane not knowing what the program was, because we only got it out a day before. Right? So phase 2 is slightly better. We got it out like a week and a bit before. But this is a voluntary outfit, and we really need volunteers. But more importantly, we need to gauge 2 phases, very clear, phase 1, phase 2, and that was it. So what I'd actually like to ask you, these kinds of activities run through volunteer power, right? Volunteers like all the members on the committee. And so I would like to have a sense of whether or not those of you who participated obviously in the last 2 days and also phase 1 thought that these 2 workshops or scaling Bitcoin is actually useful. It means a lot to me, but it may not mean a lot to you. So what I'd like you to do is that if you believe that phase 1 and phase 2 was useful, on the count of 3, I'd like you to hum as loud as you can. I'm just trying to get a gauge of whether or not you think phase 1 or phase 2 was useful, technically useful, community useful, however you want to interpret that to be. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. The bit I'm trying to lead to is next steps in the agenda, right? So we've basically concluded phase 1 and phase 2, so that's kind of done. But one of the things that I'm sensing from is a great vibe, right? A great sense of community, great thing to be able to put faces to handles and email addresses. The diversity of this group is amazing, right? We've managed to hopefully bridge East and West, different understandings, and all these great things that have come out through 2 very hastily put together, yes, we made lots of mistakes, volunteer effort. And so what I would like to suggest is, I have a question, which is, and you can actually raise your hand for this, which is that if we host another Scaling Bitcoin once a year, do you think that actually makes sense? And if you do, please raise your hand. Once a year in 2016. Okay. So it looks like we've got more work to do. In which case, what I'm going to do then is, after this, I'm going to be putting out a call for volunteers. As I said at the very beginning of this conference, we've kind of tried to shrink wrap the conference into very easy sort of packages so that volunteers can basically take this and run with it. But if it's the case that we would like to do another Scaling Bitcoin in 2016, what I would suggest is that we can synchronize with the developers and your schedule. There's a question here. Can it be more about scaling? I think Elizabeth.
One thing I would
what I'm going to do at this point is get feedback with the mic from the floor on suggestions of not only criticisms, comments, whatever, so that we can share and just record this to help us. Starting with Elizabeth, who's on the committee.
So apparently, some people wanted even 2 times a year event. So that's something we could also float with the group. Although that's way more work for us as the organizers.
That's fine. It's only no sleep. So the first question was once a year. So I think we've established at least once a year. The second question obviously is twice a year. For those of you who think twice a year for Scaling Bitcoin would be useful.
And in 2 very different regions.
And in 2 different regions. Please raise your hand. Twice a year. Twice a year. I would say roughly half. Or, yeah, you get your feedback. Okay, so comment. I'm going to open for questions and comments now for the people who how to improve scaling Bitcoin or what scaling Bitcoin can address. Because we've done the two topics. We were very clear about what phase 1 would address. Very clear what phase 2 would address. Obviously, we didn't know there was going to be phase 3. So Elizabeth, over to you.
So I was thinking, to respond to Neha's question, about broadening the scope of what scaling Bitcoin means. Really, it's growing Bitcoin as a community. It's bringing Bitcoin to the world. So one possibility is it may not be focused just on, say, block size related proposals or more specific proposals, but broader technical issues about bringing Bitcoin to the world. So that's one way in which we could expand while still keeping the name.
And focusing on the technical aspects.
The technical
right?
aspects. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Any other suggestions on how to improve scaling Bitcoin or areas of focus? You have the mic. I'll run over. I'll stay here and you run over here. Actually, that's not good.
Even with everything we talked about here, I don't think we're done with scaling Bitcoin. You know, even if we fixed the orphan problem, even if we got the Lightning Network, the proposal for Lightning Network was that they could get 250 million people on the system. We're less than 8 billion. 8 billion is the number of people in the world. Let's get to 8 billion. The next major proposal, which I saw almost no discussion of, was sharding. We need to shard the blockchain and make it so that you don't have to have, each node doesn't have to process every single transaction in the world. So we need to get there.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'm going to have a public service announcement. There's two aspects before we formally close, which is at 7 o'clock, if you walk straight down this corridor to the very end and turn right up the escalators, you will find the podium where there will be the largest Bitcoin sign in the world put on for you this evening. We have all-you-can-eat food and drinks from 7 through 9. Some members of our administration will be popping through saying hi, just to say hello. And with that, I want to draw to a formal close, but there's one more thing, sorry.
So if someone lost their wallet, it's brown, so if you find a wallet, please let Lloyd know.
We also managed to lose a car last night. Anyway, did we get the car? Do we, headsets? We have 21 minus what? Do we get the person who found the car? Not yet. So if you lost a car, please let us, car key, sorry. New problems to address last night. I did not expect to have to deal with that. Any other last minute? What I would like to do is formally close, but you're not yet, wait. What I'd like to do now is just, we're done, we're closed, but we have a final public service announcement, and I would like to call on Corey to make that.
Thank you. So, can we get a hand for Pindar one more time, please? Now that we're done. Thank you. So, Pindar, you can have a seat. You're done. So I'll be quick. I know that there are food and drinks waiting. Tomorrow and for the next 2 days, we have 2 rooms reserved just down the hall: video conference room 2 and video conference room 3. Technical discussions for anyone involved in the Bitcoin space. It doesn't matter what the project is. If you want to come and work and speak technically, you're invited. So for the next 2 days, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. We have the space available. So the intent is to share technical ideas, have technical discussion, share code, work on code together. If there's anyone who has any kind of unresolved, I would like to go over this with you. It's a really good time. So there's also the possibility of grabbing some dinner afterwards. So if you guys want to come up to me tonight while we're grabbing food and drinks, give me a bit of an idea.
Will people be able to join via IRC?
Yes. Yes. So we'll set up a channel. I probably should have that done already, but I don't. So first thing tomorrow, I'll set up a channel and go to the typical Bitcoin dev channels and kind of flood and spam that. So yeah, and anyone who maybe knows of someone who would want to participate remotely, we can call them in, do some video chat, do some IRC. Really, there are no rules. There really is not much structure. Pretty much anything goes. My only request is that it stays technical in nature. So, no block size debates. That's done now. Or maybe a dinner. Question?
This is more of a comment. There are several people, several developers who are working on projects and who would love to have help. If you've ever been thinking about how fun it would be to contribute code to Bitcoin and didn't really feel confident enough to get started, this would be a good time to do it. We could have some sort of mentor-mentee relationships going on, and we could actually get more people involved and make stuff happen. These two in particular, and also I have projects in mind. So those are a few people who you could talk to.
Very much so. I would encourage anybody who has anything, any kind of work in progress, anything to show off. It doesn't matter how rough or ugly, because that's my plan. I plan on showing some really, really ugly code tomorrow. So I hope everybody comes and does the same. Just remember, technical in nature. You don't necessarily have to be a technical person. You're welcome to come and watch and interact. Just kind of remember that it is a technical meetup. Okay? Any other last questions? Okay.
Okay, in closing, what I would like to do, though, is our local hosts have been standing very, very patiently, without whom support this would not be necessary. So David, who's the CTO of Cyberport, is here. Shiro, please stand and wave. And Cindy, without your support, we would not have been able to do this. So please put together for Cyberport. Thank you. Woo! Okay, so that's it. There's phase 1, phase 2, we're over. Please follow the lead to the podium, and we'll see you there in a few minutes. Thank you very much. See you online.